Hi and welcome. Hello, hello. I see our audience is filling into our Zoom webinar room, and I thank you for joining us. If you're here for a conversation with Hilary Fitzgerald Campbell, author and illustrator of Murder Book, you are in the right place. Welcome. Welcome to Alta Live. Alta Live is the digital interview series we do here at Alta Journal. I'm Beth Spotswood. I'm Alta's digital editor. Today, we will be talking with Hilary Fitzgerald Campbell. She is a frequent contributor to Alta's Altitudes cartoon section. She's a noted cartoonist. You've seen her work in many places where cartoons are published. Hilary is also the author and illustrator of a new graphic memoir, Murder Book. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. But first, some light housekeeping. If you are unfamiliar with Alta Journal, we are an award-winning quarterly magazine and website focused on California and the West. We have cartoons on the back page. Here is one of Hilary's. We're going to talk about that one in just a minute. We cover a ton of books, as well as this book, which is right here, Murder Book. And we also run the California Book Club, a monthly book club celebrating the incredible literary work coming out of the West Coast. So if you like what we do here today and are curious about our other projects, I hope you'll check out altaonline.com and explore more of our work. Please use the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen to ask questions of Hilary. Hilary and I will chat for about 30 minutes and then get to as many of your questions as possible. This event will be recorded and posted on altaonline.com later today. We're also going to shoot you a link with an email to that video. So if you miss any part of this or want to share it with everyone you know, you will be able to do that. And finally, why not kick off the chat section by letting us know where you are zooming in from today? I am up here in Novato, California. Hilary, where are you?
I'm in Brooklyn, New York. You're in Novato.
I'm in Novato. Yeah, I'm close to your...
I love Novato. I am often at the Target there with my mother and the In-N-Out.
Into jokes. Yeah, that's my mall. That's my mom mall.
Yeah.
Welcome. Congrats on Murder Book. It launched officially yesterday. And if I'm not mistaken, you were out partying quite late last night celebrating this launch.
You can tell by my fun look right now. We had a kick-ass launch party, I can't lie, and I had the fucking time of my life. It was great. It was
fantastic.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Is this your first book? Can you tell us a little bit about, you're a cartoonist. We know you at Alta as a gag cartoonist, which is gag cartoons are these one-off. Oh, Hilary, you disappeared.
My mom keeps trying to call me. I'm like, please stop calling. It's like ending. Sorry.
Mrs. Campbell, if you could just wait a second, give us about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Hilary can take that call. So you're usually a gag cartoonist, or that's how we know you. Is this your first book?
It's my first. Yeah. Well, it's actually technically, I've illustrated a bunch of other books. But I did have a much smaller book that was my first book in 2016 that was called Breaking Up is Hard to Do, but it was very different. And so it was just sort of a fun little project I did that got published. And this feels like my first true, I made a book.
You definitely
I drew a whole book,
and this book is, it has a lot of, it is memoir, it's true crime, it's a graphic, what are we calling, is it a graphic memoir? Is that the correct?
Yeah. Overall, it is a graphic memoir, but it does have aspects of there's historical stuff in it, a lot of pop culture, and the fandom of true crime. But ultimately, it's a memoir. They're calling it an unconventional memoir, whatever that means.
I love it. Who wants to read a conventional memoir? So while we talk, I'd like to share my screen and we're going to take a little gander at your work, if that's cool. And kind of, I wanted to start with, this is a cartoon. Again, this is how we, and those of us at Alta, at least who are readers of Alta's cartoons, know you. This is in this, the current issue. And it's, if you can't read that caption, it's it's a teacher, professor doing a slideshow, and he's got, once you have all of these, it's clearly dental school. Once you have all of these tools in the patient's mouth, it's important to ask them about their summer plans, which I think is a very you cartoon. It's hilarious. Love it. But
I was in that cartoon. I was at NYU dental school because it's the affordable way to get dental work here in New York. And I was just in there looking around at how many people were actually training to be dentists, and was thinking to myself, that can't be right. Like, this many people want to be a dentist? Like I'm like, I was just having this thought. I'm like, I can't believe there's a whole school for this. Like, to me, I'm like, why would you ever want to be a dentist? No offense to dentists. It's not that I don't like you, but I'm shocked. And so I was thinking a lot about dentist school and what they might be teaching. And it felt like a key point.
So this cartoon that ended up published in a magazine was really, the origins of it were a discount dental treatment.
Dental. Yeah. Yep.
Love it. It makes, I myself have been to dental school for dental care. It was awful. I cried.
Yeah, it's pretty. No, I cried too. Yeah. I can't go back.
Once is enough. Save save $600, and I would rather just, I don't know, find another way. All right. But so I wanted to talk about, we're familiar with your cartoons, and in fact, we will find a way to link to this. Hilary has already participated in an Alta Live talking about her gag cartoon work. So let's talk about Murder Book. Something that you and I share in common, other than a love of Novato, apparently, is a fascination with true crime.
Yes.
And I love this page because you say we all have that first murder that captivated us. And yours appears to be Zodiac. Is that the case?
Yes. I think in a larger way, Zodiac was definitely the first case that, as I said, was captivating to me. And as it's kind of drawn here, well, or maybe it's not here yet, but it was very much, obviously, 30, 40 years later when I was like discovering it, from the 70s, but it was just so where I was growing up, and it felt like it was just so, even though it was so old, the case still like felt so relevant. It still feels relevant in a weird way because people are always talking about the Zodiac, but like being in Sonoma and like over in Napa and like, everything, it just like was just everywhere. And then my mother actually knew the last victim is Paul Stein. His wife worked with my mom's friend, and she was living in San Francisco at the time. And so she has all these stories about it, and my father too. And so I think that, and I write in the book that everyone lately, you have that feeling of like, if you feel like you're connected to a case in any way way
I think we have that.
Even if you're not connected, like even
I can
if you're
jump through.
Somewhere, the
lady
who knew the guy. Yeah, I was like, that could be me. You just sort of like the idea that you knew something and then you feel special, which is morbid, right? You're like, why do I want to be connected to a murder case? But I do. But not really though. Okay. Not really, but like, but it has like this strange, I feel like, excitement that you get, just sort of like knowing that there's like something in your life that connects you to the thing and really pulls you in. And then, I mean, in any conversation you have with, to me, anyone, I'm like, well, I knew, and then, but I saw, like,
sure.
Yeah. So
is that what you think? Is that what first connected you and interested you in true crime? Kind of that direct connection of like, oh my God. I mean, you went to the movies. We have,
I think so.
I'm skipping around here because our conversation is so organic and wonderful.
I know.
But you went to the movies and you realized, oh my God, parts of the Zodiac murder, and parts that are in this David Fincher, this kind of wonderful David Fincher film.
Oh my God, it's the greatest movie. Yeah.
So great. Took place in your childhood kind of area.
Yes. I think like I must have been 16 or something. And like sitting in the theater and then watching it, I was like watching it in Napa. And then they're like cutting to like Napa, Sonoma, Berryessa, all these things. And it was such a larger than life case too, and the movie itself. So I think that was a large part of like, me getting drawn in, but also you have to have like a sense of morbid, like if you're not kind of a morbid personality, you're probably not going to get drawn to true crime. But I like dark things, so I think that's also a part of it. But even, so I write about, I mean, I go through the whole Zodiac case in the book. And when I like first like was starting the book and thinking about like, trying to ask myself like, oh, what is like the starting point? And like in the book, I'm like thinking it's Zodiac, but then when I explore kind of further, I think, I can find actually like cases earlier on in like my relationship with my mother and a lot of older women in the community that and maybe even earlier in my life drew me in, like, stuff with like Scott Peterson and Lacey Peterson. And so, I mean, obviously there's like a million cases, anything Nancy Gray said on, but now I've lost myself on a train of thought.
Well, so I like how you did a cartoon or a piece in the book about blaming the mother, because first of all, you blame your own mother, your grandmother, and your great grandmother, who we should point out was F. Scott Fitzgerald's sister.
Yeah, I know, it's wild.
So speak of you. But it's interesting also because the mother is always blamed for why someone is a serial killer. Like, what did the mom do wrong?
That's true. I was thinking about that. Yeah, well, I mean, you gotta blame the mother, really. But I blame her in a loving way, I think, but it's, I think that like it's sort of, I write about how it's like how I learned to like converse, you're like, oh, these are the things we talk about, like, and this is how I'm going to connect with people, is talking about crime and murder. And I do make a joke in the book of like, it all really is just gossip too at the same time, like, but my mom,
and you share this with the women in your family.
And it feels very female. And I mean, if I, none of the men, none of my dad, my brother, none of my uncles, they're not really, it's not their thing. And it's all my aunts and my grandmother. And sort of like, it felt like there was like this lineage, of like, just sort of like being obsessed with this one thing.
Have you found a reason? Have you landed? Sorry.
I don't know. There's no one reason, like, I think there's a lot of reasons, and I go, I kind of dip my toe into multiple ideas throughout the book. But I mean, there's no like hard fast, like this is the one reason, why women love murder. But there's, I think, I mean, again, like when you're watching true crime, you're mostly seeing women being murdered, right? Like women are the victim. So obviously then, as a woman, you're drawn in, you sympathy, empathy, you care. And then also you can see yourself in the victim, and, a fear of like, dear God, I don't want that to happen to me. And
I troubleshoot the situation.
Exactly.
Like, how would I have survived this? How would I have gotten out of this?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing when you're like watching a horror film. You go, well, I wouldn't do that. I would have gone out the door this way, like, so you sort of like it's like picking up little like pieces of like knowledge for yourself on like how to not get murdered.
Does horror interest you? Does fictional crime, murder, interest you as much?
Yeah, I love horror films. I'm absolutely like totally loves scary movies. And I don't know if like that's true for all true crime people, but I love a scary movie.
That is not true for me. I love true crime, but I don't like slasher, whatever. And so, one of the things you kind of draw yourself here walking with another cartoonist,
Sophia. Yeah.
And you're basically like, true crime is exactly self-descriptive.
And I go, what is it? And you go, it just is. My friend Ellis always makes the joke. He's like, well, what about fake crime? Like, fake crime's not getting enough good rep these days. It's a total dad joke, but he makes it every time. But I mean, now it encompasses so many things. I think, years ago, true crime was it was just books, it was pretty much like either journalism or books. But now true crime means a lot of things. It means podcasts, documentaries, TV shows. There's sort of like endless true crime now. I mean, it's like, it's a large part of pop culture now, which is so weird. That
Oh,
I
it's
just,
humongous. And
yeah,
we're seeing it on, Saturday Night Live is now making fun of women's
yeah,
love of true crime.
yeah, yeah.
It's part of
I love
the
that. Yes,
lexicon now.
it
So
is.
this is I love this one because I think that, like you, and if you're really into true crime as I am, and I don't know, Hilary, if you're in the Reddit forums.
I'm not
Um,
always in there now. I have joined Web Sleuths or
oh
Crime
yeah,
Sleuths.
Web Sleuths is great.
Web Sleuths is fascinating. But what were you gonna say?
Well, it's the connection, I think, that
Hmm.
people feel. I like you with Zodiac. Zodiac was not my gateway murder. The
Yeah.
Manson murders one, when a girl in
Okay.
sixth grade did her report on a famous Californian and chose Charles Manson. And I read Helter Skelter as a result. I mean, I don't know how I
Yeah.
found Helter Skelter in sixth grade, but
Yeah.
I did.
Somewhere. Oh my God,
But
in
with
sixth grade. Yeah.
Zodiac, I also from the North Bay,
Yeah.
and my grandpa was a San Francisco police officer, and his partner in real life,
Yeah.
or in the early days, in the 50s and 60s before Zodiac, was Detective Inspector Toschi, the guy Mark Ruffalo plays in the movie. So when I was watching the movie with
Okay.
my dad leans over and is like, "Oh, I know him. He
Oh,
was in
oh
our
my God, I
house
have a
when I was
heart attack.
growing up." I know, crazy, right?
I love Tosky and his bow ties.
Right.
I drew a lot of pictures. I was looking at a lot of photos of him because I drew him a lot in this book, and he had such a look. Oh my God,
Very
what a
flashy
guy!
look. He had a bow tie, and he had the like
He's
Bullet,
suspended.
the fictional
Yeah.
SFPD
Yes.
cop. He had
Yeah.
the, what do you call that? Like a holster?
Yeah. This thing. Yeah. The
I
thing
don't
was slung
know.
on, and his hair. Oh my God, I loved it
Yeah, he
all.
had a real look. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, he was my grandpa's partner in the 1950s.
Okay, that's
All right. So that is my kind of, I do understand this fascination with things that you kind of feel connected to. And in fact,
yeah.
Michelle McNamara, in her book about the Golden State Killer, she talks about
Hmm.
her gateway murder, which is something that happened in her small neighborhood, and her cousin's friend's teacher knew the
Right.
victim. And
Right.
it's that, and
Forgot
it
about that.
makes it, I think that it makes it like, oh my God, this could definitely happen to me because my cousin's friend's
Yeah.
teacher knows Susie that was found in the
Yes.
chimney.
Yes. Yeah. No, I remember my sister, and then you would have had the same thing. I don't, when Polly Class, was stolen right out of her bedroom. My sister was telling me that she's like, because she saw that, and I think was Polly Class's age. She saw it on the news as a kid and was like horrified, just really like, because it was one town over, that this little girl just up and vanished out of her own bedroom, and she said that that was like her first feeling of like, holy shit, like this is very real.
Did you, when you were kind of pitching this idea, when you had the seed was planted for Murder Book, and again, it's
Mhm.
kind of a blend, an unconventional blend of kind of cultural criticism, examining our interest and passion with true crime. It's a memoir. It's kind of your personal history, and then you also take a look at some crimes that victims that didn't necessarily get the
Yeah.
um, attention that perhaps they deserved. How was it a tough sell making this
Honestly,
happen?
no. Honestly, no. I mean, I had, several conversations with multiple publishers, and I'm very happy that I ended up with Andrews McNeil. It's just been wonderful. But I had, people were very excited by what I drew 70 pages of the book as a part of like the packet to sell, as well as like it was like a 10-page pitch and then like 70 pages of drawings that were pretty much what is now the Zodiac chapter. But I feel like I'm like bragging right now. I'm like, but it wasn't people. I guess I'm just good at telling stories this way, that I mean, I kind of, I draw how I speak, which is a lot of tangents. Like, so the book like is like, we're here and now we're over here, but remember this other thing, and that reminds me of this, but I'm gonna still come back over here. And that's just how I talk, and it's how I draw. So I'm able, I don't know, I guess I'm able to sort of tell the personal while telling a global story, while telling like something historical. And I don't know, but I can see why you think why that's actually maybe a hard pitch, but maybe because I had already drawn so much that was kind of like, it was really obvious on the page of like, this is what I plan to do, and my editor Allison Adler was just she got it, which was great. We had a long conversation before they ended up buying the book, and like she just got it. She was like, I've never seen anything drawn like this, and I was like, that's okay, yay, this is so cool.
The idea.
Yeah.
I'm familiar, the only, in fact, graphic books that I'm familiar with are My Friend Dahmer, which is also it's a very personal, a guy who grew up and went to school with Jeffrey Dahmer, noted serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer. Horrible, infamous. I don't mean noted in a good way. I mean very famous serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer. But graphic novels, graphic books in some capacity are much like true crime, kind of blossoming in popularity. Do you enjoy reading them? Do you have favorites?
I love reading them. Yeah. Oh my God. Oh my God. Well, let's see.
Recommend someone to us who, if in addition to Murder Book, who should we go by and give as Christmas gifts?
Oh my God. Okay. Whoa. Okay. Marissa Acacella's Cancer Vixen. It's not a new book, but she made it a wonderful graphic memoir about surviving cancer. And it's funny because she's a New Yorker cartoonist, and she's a very just sort of like fashionista girl, like such a like, New York girl out at the clubs, having martinis, and then she gets cancer, and so she has to like reckon with like that she's also getting engaged at the same time. It's a really just amazing book. All of Gabrielle Bell's work, she's also from Northern California, and she is just very wonderfully introspective in all of her work, and writes a lot about her mom, who lives, I can't remember what, but some very rural area of Northern California. And she's always going back to visit her. So she's like drawing between like city life and her mom out in the woods. Oh my God. I mean, all of Roz Chass books are incredible. Obviously, like, Can't We Talk About Something More Pleasant is like the greatest graphic memoir ever. Will McPhail's new book is just gorgeous and beautiful. It's called In. I'm gonna forget everything right now. I will
make you remember every person or every graphic book you've ever met.
But there's so many. I love graphic memoirs. I specifically love graphic memoirs. I love graphic novels too, but I really love, it's because I like biographies and stuff. Like I like memoirs in general, I like Diane Keaton's memoir. I'm like that stuff. I just eat it all up. I love to know about people's lives.
Speaking of people's lives, this is a horrible segue. Can you talk about some of the cases that we might not know about that haunt you, that marinate in your mind?
Yes. One case that haunts me is in the book, towards the end of the book, was in Delaware, and Anne Rule wrote about it. And this woman, Anne Marie Fahey, and it's just, it's a very classic thing of like, woman gets murdered, she's having an affair, and the man kills her, because she tries to leave. It's like you hear.
But he came from a very powerful Philadelphia family. I know the murder you're talking about.
Yes, yeah, Thomas Capano. Yeah.
And his brother helped him, and they put her in a cooler and threw her into the cooler. Yeah.
And she was just such this beautiful person that just got caught up in a bad thing and was trying to get out of it, and he wouldn't let her, And obviously, as you say, he was like this very powerful man in Wilmington, right, Delaware. And he was extremely possessive, but she had this, he had all this money and stuff, and her family, she grew up pretty poor. She lost her mother, and so you can see how she was, kind of more maybe just like succumbed to these things. Not really, I don't know, but anyways, that case, I don't know. I mean, you know about it, not that many. I was like, I'm glad you know about it. But that case,
Yeah, the Anne-Marie
I also
Fahey
just,
case.
yes, I love, but Anne, I love Anne Rule's books. Like I just
Do
love,
you?
love Anne Rule more than anything.
Very mixed feelings about Anne Rule.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, okay.
That's
I'm
a,
a
I mean,
su-
we
I'm
could
a
have a
super fan.
whole, we should get Anne Rule. We can talk about her books. I'm sure there's West Coast. So she did, it's all Ted Bundy. Oh, she once answered a phone next to Ted Bundy, and like
I know.
everything she does is
Well, I think that I actually have a piece was published today on Crime Reads that I like literally wrote a whole essay about Anne Rule. I think that the that knowing her for the Ted Bundy thing is like, you're like, that's interesting and everything, but have you read all of her other books? Like, I'm like, that's, yes, There's a Stranger Beside Me, and I love that book, but I mean, she wrote 40 books. Like
right.
there's so much, I think there's so much more to her career than, the Ted Bundy thing, but it's the one thing that like people, talk about because it's it's her first book too. But
Right. Ruth asks why I have mixed feelings about Anne Rule. I think that she inserts her own expertise, which is very limited, into each of her murder stories. Um, I mean, I don't know. I feel if she were submitting for Alta, the editors would
I disagree
go
with you.
nuts with her work.
So I disagree with you wholeheartedly.
Have a debate. Anne Rule. I mean, I think
Yeah.
she's great, and I've read not all 40, but I've certainly read 10 of her books. I still read it.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite style of writing. Oh, Ruth has mixed feelings too.
Okay.
What about, do you have in the kind of true crime genre, other than you're doing graphic memoir around it a little bit, do you have kind of the favorite true crime podcast shows,
Sure, of course.
true crime books? What are your
Oh my
recommendations?
gosh. Well, I'm still working my way through Chaos because it's such a big book. Have you read
What's
Chaos?
Chaos? I don't know Chaos.
Oh my God. It's books over there. I don't remember the author's name right now. This guy basically disproves the entire case. Not to say that Manson didn't do all the things that he did, like, yes, it's not like it's the case that the invention of the idea of helter skelter and what Vincent Bugliosi did in court and how much he actually lied and fabricated everything, and that the CIA knew Manson. It's an unreal book, but it's really, really dense, and it's incredibly eye-opening. And he has spent this author journalist has spent his entire life almost trying to get people to talk. Like Candice Bergen still won't talk about what happened because she was living in the house that Sharon
Right.
Tate, but she was friends. They were all friends with Manson, and no one to this day, he couldn't. If Bugliosi was like trying to sue this author because he uncovers all these lies, but the book is so big and dense, and it goes into so many theories that sometimes I just have to put it down.
That is what I would like for Christmas.
Oh my God, it really blew my mind, and it will rock your world if you think you know anything about Manson. You don't. The Manson, you're like, oh my God, I actually know nothing about this case, and everything that we all think we know is like this sort of web of lies that Bugliosi put together because he was so determined to put Manson in jail. I think he went to extreme lengths basically to lie. And obviously we all are happy Manson, you're like, yeah, you want him in jail, but like it's really wild. And also just knowing how much the government was involved was like, the hell.
Podcast. So what about it? Give me a true crime podcast that you love.
Okay, so there's obviously, we all have our top favorites, and I won't mention, obviously it's like everybody loves My Favorite Murder, me too. But one I recently listened to that maybe not everyone knows about is called Counterclock. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I liked this woman's voice and the way she told the story, and then it's this, and she's kind of, goes back to what we were saying about like the hometown thing and feeling connected, as the first season is this woman, I mean, she's worked as like I think maybe a TV correspondent with crime and stuff and for years, but then decided to do a podcast on a woman in her town that was murdered when she was growing up, and the case remained unsolved. And so she goes into investigating that this girl just sort of died in her house. She never should have died in the house. And it's very interesting. And I think a new season's coming out too. But it's, all these podcasts, I love them all. They're hard to differentiate. You're like,
right.
They're all
there's two worlds of the true crime podcast. Yeah. There are the ones that spend a season on one case.
Yes.
And then there's like every episode is it's 60 minutes on this murder. And then
I prefer where you go a whole season into one case. That's for me mostly. Then I would like criminal, with Phoebe Judge, that's amazing too. So but I tend to listen more to like, the ones that are going to really delve into something.
Have you listened to Tom Brown's Body? This is my recommendation. Like Anne Rule, I'm diving on in with my.
Is that Skip's? Is that
yes? Skip Hollingsworth. Skip Hollingsworth as a writer for Texas Monthly magazine.
Oh my god, I love everything they do at Texas.
Yes, agreed. If one day we will get Skip Hollingsworth to write for Alta, and I will.
I was emailing with him. I sent him a copy of the book, and he was like, "Here's my address," and I was like, "I literally can't believe you responded to me." Like I was like so eager. Like,
Skip Hollingsworth
emailed me back.
If you're unfamiliar and you are into great true crime long reads, I call them airplane reads because they're great for a flight. He writes for Texas Monthly. He wrote the original story about Bernie that was made into a movie with Jack Black. Yes. He wrote this incredible book, The Midnight Assassin, about a Texas serial killer. And he's got this great podcast called Tom Brown's Body about.
I did listen to that. That was really good.
Which is it's like 8 episodes about an 18-year-old who died. I have my own theories, but okay. I want to be sensitive of your time, and I also knew that you were rocking hardcore last night. We're a couple of questions. Oh, someone corrects us that Manson was from Ohio. I know, who was born as No Name Manson in Ohio. I know, but he eventually came to California, so he was a Californian.
Eventually, he was.
I mean, if you consider yourself
I still consider myself a Californian,
right? Absolutely. And you're in New York,
absolutely. And I've been in New York 6 years, but hello, I was,
right, you're from Sonoma. Manson's most famous for the horrible things that he did while in California. I guess that's why.
Yes, notable Californian.
He isn't. I mean, sadly, he is. Yeah. Can you recommend? You already recommended some graphic novelists, but what about back to kind of your cartoon work? First of all, are you leaping full into the graphic memoir game with other projects? Are you sticking with gag cartoons? What's the plan?
Oh, well, you do both. You do both. I think. When I was done, took so long, obviously, to draw a murder book. And then at the time, I was still able to, find time to draw gag cartoons, but not as much. So then finishing the book, it was exciting to like have my brain be able to bounce back more to doing gag cartoons again. And like kind of, but as a working artist, right, you're always kind of doing 40 things. So like, I'm already working on new books but I'm also still doing gags and I'm writing a lot. And so I'm, you kind of got to do it all, but there will certainly be more of all the things coming in the vague future.
Do you think that, Ruth asks, will there ever be an animation version of this graphic story? Oh, can't say.
Maybe.
Love it. That's great. And is that a new subgenre? I don't know of any existing animated true crime.
I know. That's the question. My Favorite Murder has their new little animated thing, like that they like people just like there's somebody that's animating their episodes, and they're really
Oh,
funny.
really?
Yeah.
My favorite murder, for those who aren't familiar, is a insanely popular true crime podcast that gave Alta article a shout out. They
That's
said my
amazing.
name wrong, but they said Alta right.
They said my name once, and I had a heart attack.
It's an incredible, it's a really
It's a
great
big feeling for
it's a
Georgia
great
and Karen
feeling.
to mention you. You go, like,
Yeah, and they
that's
mentioned
great.
we wrote about a woman, Evelyn Hernandez, who was pregnant and went missing at the exact same time as Lacey Peterson, who you mentioned before, in San Francisco.
Okay.
Oh, Lisa mentions Only Murders in the Building on Hulu. Exactly. So good.
Good.
It's fun to see kind of our fellow true crime weirdos emerging. We're kind of coming out of our twisted,
Yeah, no, there's so much. There's so much now. I love, oh my God, what's the John Early show that like was on TBS and then it ended up on HBO? My Search Party. That show is amazing. Oh, and it's all about, it sort of has this like Coen brothers type feeling where like a crime goes so terribly wrong and you're watching everything fall out forever and ever, and how much, the ripple effects of how much it's ruining everyone's lives now. You have to watch Search Party. It's so funny.
And this is another one. So I've got Chaos and Search Party written down, and we are taking, the wonderful Jessica Blau is taking notes. She's an editorial assistant at Alta, and we're going to email the books, the graphic novelists that Hilary is recommending. Chaos, Search Party, we'll get it all. Where you can buy Mindhunter on Netflix is also good. Where you can buy Murder Book.
Buy it at the bookstore.
In a bookstore, as well as
buy it from a bookstore.
Yeah, so we'll support independent booksellers for sure.
Yes.
Kind of lastly, will you, with the hopeful success of Murder Book, and it seems like exciting things are on the horizon, I don't want to jinx anything, will you continue to submit gag cartoons to places like Alta?
Of course. Are you kidding me? Yes. When's the next deadline? I think it's in December. You'll have my packet.
Okay, great. Mary asks, where can she read the essay you wrote about Anne Rule?
Yeah, okay. I think if it wasn't published today, it's gonna be published tomorrow. It's on Crime Reads, and it's an excerpt from the book that's like a mini biography that I drew of Anne Rule. And then it's my feelings on Anne Rule, and but it should be on Crime Reads, and then but if it's not now, I guess it will be tomorrow. I'm not sure.
Coming up ASAP on Crime Reads.
Yes, Crime Reads.
Great. Do you listen to any Australian true crime podcasts? Someone from
I don't know. Can you give me an example?
Case File. I'll knock them right out for you, Ruth.
Tell me. I'm not sure. I might, and I don't know that I do, or something.
The woman who does the Canadian true crime is from Australia, and it's very confusing because it's all Canadian murders, but she's Australian. Case File is the best Australian true crime podcast, Ruth.
I haven't heard that. I have to listen. I've fallen off the wagon a little with keeping up with true crime, and finishing the book. Sometimes I'm like, I can't have something play. I'm trying to write, so like, I haven't had as much podcast time as one wish, certainly it's in the future.
Well, we are excited to see what comes next for you. Keep us posted. Please keep sending us your hilarious cartoons, because I love when they pop up as we pick our cartoons. You're so funny.
Thank you.
And for everyone, before you rush out of here to go buy Murder Book, let me invite you next week. At this time, I'm really excited to welcome two self-identified Creek Freaks. They are women in Los Angeles who are dedicated to discovering, celebrating, and preserving these waterways, these secret waterways that run underneath LA. We're also next week on Thursday going to welcome their author, Tommy Orange, for the California Book Club discussion. That's next Thursday, the 18th at 6 o'clock at night, new time, 6 p.m. for the CBC, next week's California Book Club. So everyone is invited to both of those. They're free, they're exciting. They will be as good as this conversation, if not fabulously better. Possible? I don't know, Hilary. Anyway,
Hey.
tough one. Thank you so much for taking the time and letting us be your book interview on the second day. You're not even 24 hours into this book launch.
Oh my God, I know. Fresh out the oven here. Well, thank you for having me. This was
honor.
lovely.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye.